Gotta have your face there, Doug.
Okay. Before we do, adopt the agenda, I have one change. I'd like, somebody to move. Letter of support for the Sept grant for the Transportation Society would be 18, and 18, 19, and 20 would slip down one.
Make that motion. Add it in, please.
Any questions on that?
Is that number 20?
It will become 18.
Okay.
18A?
18. Current 18 will be 19.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Thanks.
Okay. All in favor of amending the agenda? Carried. If I could get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
All in favor of adopting the agenda? Carried. Minutes, regular meeting, August 12th. Any questions, errors, omissions? Greg?
No, everything looked great. I'd like to adopt the meeting minutes from August 12th as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move into delegations. We have with us tonight the MD of Willow Creek. Marianne, would you like to lead off, or?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd like to introduce Deputy Reeve Allen, Councillor Larry Marco, and our new CAO, Derek Krizan, who are with me today.
Nice to meet you.
And we're here, we are, as you probably have seen within your paper, we advertised a lending bylaw to the Claresholm Transportation Society of $10,000. We realize the value of the Transportation Society to this town and to the area, period, to the whole of the MD. And we, as such, we are going to lend them $10,000 to help them out. And I believe the period of time is for 2 years to lend it to. And we're asking your support, and I see that you have a letter of support on your agenda for a SIP grant. We're requesting that perhaps you may consider seriously taking on half of the $10,000 and contributing $5,000 to the Transportation Society. And with that, I'll let anyone else here that's representing the MD make a statement if they like, please.
Come on, Derry, you love speeches. Get up there.
I didn't write anything down.
But basically, Council and Mayor, that is our request that we're asking from the Council of the MD for your consideration.
Derry?
Well, if I may, I believe this would be a short, I'm hoping it's a short-term solution. Maybe we can hear a bit more on that, but the funding from the government has changed. The source of the funding for the Transportation Society has changed. And maybe we get some more insight on that from the boss here. And if we can get that back to where it belongs, then the Transportation Society can get back to their normal funding model, and hopefully they can get back on their feet. So I'm hoping this is a short-term solution.
The only problem with a short-term solution is I've met with Roger 3 times now, and he's having enough trouble just getting to anybody about this. And yes, they are looking into healthcare, but he says it will not be a short fix. He says before they do anything, it may be. He just said, don't hold your breath. So that's leaving us kind of in
Standard
limbo.
political
because,
answer.
again, we're stuck in a hard spot. Some news is that we have, we're putting in for 2 more grants, one to the credit union, and what's the other one Gabriel's doing for us? It's a $65,000 grant, but there again, they're long-term. They're not, she said the credit union is a $5,000, but it would be at least 3 months before they decide, and lots of people are putting in for it. But the other one could take up to a year. So doesn't seem to be any short-term fix. And like even with all the stuff we have put out to the community, there's just been no response.
Glenn?
I think you guys are aware of it, but it's changed a little bit. The Transportation Society used to take people to appointments and transfers to Calgary non-ambulatory and we're paid by Alberta Health Services. Now that comes in the nursing budget, so the hospital won't use the Transportation Society. They'll use the ambulance at 780 instead of the 120 or 130 for the Transportation Society, so that's put a short-term pinch on these guys. And that's why we've decided to step in and give them a loan, and hopefully, maybe you guys can get the ear of somebody at the AUMA and let them know that there's a problem with their funding arrangement. The hospitals don't wanna take it out of their nursing, so they'll use the ambulance, which is, you guys know all about the ambulance service, which takes another ambulance out of service or away from service here. And so we think it's a pretty big deal, and so I guess we came here with an official request to ask you to share in the loan that we're gonna give them short-term to help keep them so there's no disruption of service, but I hope you guys will also, if you get any chance, to get an audience with anybody in Alberta Health Services to show them another error in their ways. I think there's many that need to be pointed out.
Many.
but
They're
this is
under
one
the,
that's
they're under the
affecting us
microscope now,
immediately.
so they're gonna be tough to deal with right now.
Yeah,
And if I could add to that, the irony of this is that in our understanding and knowledge is that Clareson Transportation Society also covers Vulcan. Vulcan has not touched the budget at all and left their transfer budget with Clare's Home Transportation. They have not moved it into the nursing budget at all, which is ironic. It seems to be only this institution here that has done this to the Transportation Society at this point in time.
Yeah,
So
because
that's decided at a local level, like they had a nursing would decide that?
Yeah, we brought the matrons, over, not the matrons, but the ones who run the, over to talk to the board. And this is exactly what they told us
Yeah.
at the meeting.
So they had a nursing of each
Mhm.
individual hospital.
Each nursing
Decides.
manager has that authority,
I didn't realize they had that kind
yeah.
of, it's
So
quite
there's,
serious.
the other thing I'm doing, and Sandy, we're going to, on the 17th, we're meeting with High River and Strathmore, and we're trying to get a group of us together as chairman and CEOs of the transportation to talk to them, because they're all running into the same problem. Operating costs are killing them. And they want to lobby the government as a united voice, saying, look, we're providing a huge benefit for communities. When you figure you got Strathmore, High River, and us covering a huge area.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of people we're benefiting.
And if I could reiterate, if any of you have read the McKinnon report in looking at Alberta healthcare at this time, and they're looking for solutions on how to manage some of these things, I think as Glenn said, it's the opportune time for you at AUMA and for us at RMA to, you know, talk to the health minister and to point out ways that, you know, we can save them money rather than using those ambulances and using our transportation societies more effectively. And there's way more other ways that we can look at it.
Marion, I've seen nothing for an invitation that there's even somebody from Alberta Health Services available to talk to there. Is,
No, if we wanted to try and get a delegation with the minister, I could make that request, though. I don't know what our success would be, but I can sure make that request.
well, let's go ahead with that
I think we
request.
should try.
Yeah, if you don't try, then they don't hear.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
I think that is, you know, we're certainly going to attempt to do our part to help out, and we're hoping that you guys will too.
Well, I've got some thoughts on it, so I'll give you mine and then you guys jump in and tell me where I'm wrong. How's that? I've been looking at the problem too, and I've been talked to our administration quite a bit about it. There's a few things. First off, I would like to recommend the town of Claresholm grants $5,000 to the Transportation Society. I do not believe personally loaning them the money is going to ever be repayable in the foreseeable future. So I would rather see the town kick in a grant of $5,000. That's my off the cuff thought. That is a temporary, very temporary solution. What I would like to see is, and you've talked to administration, a broadening of your books so they can get a better handle on your fee structure and I would like the MD to help also, if we could sit down and formulate a plan with your budget, and then we can look at a long-term solution, because right now, for the foreseeable future, the solution is gonna have to be between us and the MD, and possibly Vulcan. Vulcan seems to be, I'd like to know if Vulcan is paying enough to cover their share.
Actually, Vulcan does cover enough because they give us $19,500, and they are one of our busiest areas.
So when you, if
And
you
plus, we're
separate
still
them out,
getting the
is it
hospital-
covering?
We're still getting the hospital income from them.
Oh, you are still getting the billing too.
I'm gonna do a cost analysis here in the next week,
Yeah, I would like
next
to,
couple of
like,
weeks too.
I'd like administration,
To
they,
see
they
which
would
is
like to
which.
look at that and
Yeah.
then sit down with the MD.
We're also promising as soon as we get it, we'll get them the audited statement
Last year.
Yeah.
from last year. I'm just waiting to meet with the auditor. And also, I told Mary Ann we would get her a report every month, because that's easy to do. Our books are open to the public.
Yeah, it's not a question of, we're not saying you keeping anything secret, it's just that
Oh, no,
the way it's, from what I understand with, Marion, you can correct me here, like, the way it's laid out, they would like to see a broadening of some of the,
Mhm.
to understand where some of the costs are, where they're going. And the other thing that, and you're not gonna like this, and people aren't gonna like this, but is perhaps you do have to look at your fee structure a little closer and, you know, maybe do a little bit of an increase there also. But that's all part of the big plan that I would like to sit down with the MD, council to council, or administration to administration, and address that in the next 6 months and come up with a long-term solution, because for now, we've got to go it on our own. I think we should be petitioning the government for funds and for a better system. We should also be talking to the local level and see why they decided to go that direction instead of the other. But that's long-term. Right now, we need a solution that'll work for the next couple of years. So that's my recommendation that I'd like you guys to start talking about, is that we grant them $5,000 as a stopgap, and then we help plan a long-term solution. So I open it up to the floor.
and I think, Doug, you're right on track, because when you notice that brochure we put out from the board, we were asking for partners. So we're definitely game for that. To have you more as a partner, you know, in the whole situation, because it benefits the whole community.
It does.
Absolutely.
It's not just one little thing, we're benefiting the whole community.
Gail,
How many trips are out of Fort McLeod?
Right now, how many have we got?
I'm gonna say maybe 2 or 3. Unfortunately, the last little while, we've had to turn down some of the Fort McLeod trips because we haven't had drivers.
So not that much.
We don't get a lot from Fort McLeod,
We get the out-of-town ones from Fort McLeod.
you know.
The in-town one, they have their own bus.
Yeah, we
Right.
just, yeah.
so the other town ones are the MD,
Yes,
and we're already partnering with the
we're already
MD on this.
partnering. Yeah.
What else you guys got?
And Vulcan's Hospital is using Claire's Home Transportation for transfers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those were the questions I was gonna, when I looked at the packages, the Vulcan numbers and the Clarisome numbers, I was gonna ask why there's
Such a difference.
such a difference, but
The other thing-
that makes sense.
The other thing, Vulcan, FCSS subsidizes ridership.
Yeah.
And we've failed to figure out how that works.
Well,
High
we did-
River-
We did get information
Oh, you
on
did
that.
now?
It's a different grant. It's not an FCSS grant.
Oh, okay.
It's actually the Alberta Rural Development Network grant.
Well, that was what you predicted, it would be something different, so, okay.
All right,
So it is accessible, I mean, the applications can be made.
The nice thing is we do have Gabriel working on grants for us, full-time. So, in fact, I'm meeting with her on Wednesday to go over 2 of the grants she's gonna be sending, so. It's not that we've been sitting. I think this summer I've been busier than trying to get, you know, enough money to keep us going. And, you know, it gets frustrating for us too.
Yeah.
Oh,
But Sandy is now back full-time, so, you know, this is going to help out things.
No, I was,
And the casino's coming, right?
yeah,
The casino money will be in October, I guess, from what they told
I
me.
was,
But again, the casino is once every 3 years, you should
Years,
be looking, you shouldn't be using that money for your
As of-
budgeting.
no.
You shouldn't even look at it for your budgeting, that should be part of your long-term, maintenance, upgrades of vehicles and that kind of stuff. I don't see that as being part of your solution.
It isn't part of the solution because it does help if we have to buy another bus.
yeah,
That's part of our funding for that bus. Because any grant we get for a bus has to be matched. So we have to have money in there to replace buses too.
well, I was all for splitting, then I like your idea of administrations getting together and try to figure out a long-term solution so that we're not always behind the 8 ball on this. Help them out till we can get established in a long-term game plan, and then they're good to go.
What do
So
you
I'm,
think about granting it rather than loaning it?
I'm fine with either way.
I
As
don't
long
see
as it's
the
helping.
loan as a solution
I don't either.
on a struggling budget already, so.
Marianne, how do you feel about what I threw out there?
I believe we discussed it as a council, and, we just used the idea of a loan, and then if it's not repayable, we have the option as a council then to waive that. We have put no interest on that loan for the 2 years. So when that time comes, we've had other loans where we've had to forgive.
Yeah, we have too,
So,
that's why,
yeah,
that's why,
that's the option.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully in 2 years we'll have this solved.
Yeah.
Our board is
Yeah.
of the same feeling. We've gotta get this thing under control.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I think that, given a new government, given direction with the finances of the province and the McKinnon report, and we look at that and see what happens. So I think as long as we press the issue and help give solutions to the government, that we can help them with that and present the ideas, in 2 years, hopefully we'll get somewhere. The whole province may get somewhere with the transportation societies, because as Howard's saying, other societies are running into this, then certainly there's gotta be some kind of solution.
it's gotta be a solution. And could we set up a meeting between, who is the director of nursing? Is it Carmel over there, or
Pardon me, for emergency services?
that's assigning the, transfers at the hospital here? What level would that be?
That would probably be Tracy Mitchell.
Tracy
Tracy?
Mitchell.
Tracy Mitchell's the manager of the hospital.
Can we, Marion, can we have administration talk to them and see about getting a meeting between, the two CAOs and herself, if that's Tracy's
Yeah.
the one?
That's where I'd go to then.
Glenn?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I think,
Creek is good.
our thought of a loan was to give it a 2-year term with no interest, and either then we have a solution or we write it off or whatever. But in the short term, we got the money in their hands last week,
Right on.
so that they're able to pay the bills and
Right
keep
on.
things moving without
Yeah.
any disruption
And I'm
in
in
the
total,
short term, so.
I'm in total agreement with that. Like, the short term, we gotta keep them afloat, we gotta give them some money. I would rather, from the town's aspect, just grant them the money. It's one less pressure on them. They got so much pressure on them right now.
So a tricky question is, if we grant them $5,000, they still get you a $10,000?
No, that's,
Right, that's the
no.
five.
But we've already
splitting
split
it.
That's what I mean, that's what I'm trying to say,
We've written the
like,
check
yeah,
already.
right, I just, that doesn't mess up with your motion, or
Well,
whatever, I
we
just.
wrote the check for 10,000, and we were hoping that we could convince you guys
Got
to
it.
We will,
pay us
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's, I
half
just,
that.
yeah, we're gonna split it with them.
And
With
you
them.
can call it grant
We're
or loan
granting
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah, depends what you call it.
I see what you're saying,
It's up to you guys, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect.
okay,
That way they end up with the 10,000 in their hands, and we would
Perfect.
have it split the cost
Yeah.
half.
Got
And
it.
we
It's still
fully
split.
agree, it's a short-term solution to get them over the gap. And, and they have said that they're gonna work on it, so if everybody works together, then it's like an excellent idea to work.
right.
Yeah.
And Marion, I would like to be involved in that meeting with Tracy, so that I understand more myself, if you wouldn't mind, please.
You bet.
When do you guys go to AOA?
End of the month.
End of the month.
25th.
I think, a meeting with the manager of the local hospital will be good, but to me, it's a no-brainer. She makes the call to the Transportation Society, it costs her $120 or $130. She makes the call to the ambulance service, to HS, it's zero. There's no cost to her then, it goes out of a different budget.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
she's gonna continue
Yeah,
to call
that's
the
what she was
ambulance and send a $780 bill to the government
Yeah.
instead of 120, and so
But it's gotta be,
it's not, I mean, it's not a problem, she's not making a mistake,
no.
she's intentionally doing that, and she
Yeah.
should, to save her budget. And so that's why we need to try and get, while we have a chance, to the ear of someone as high up in Edmonton as we can,
Oh,
to
well,
show them that this is costing them $600 or
But it's-
plus
Unnecessary.
every time she picks up the phone to have someone move.
but I think one of the biggest problems too is it's not just a fiscal responsibility, it's a response, it's a systematic process where we're taking ambulances out of services and stuff, and I think that's where we're gonna get a bit more of the bite back too, if we can present it as a systematic process too, not just fiscally.
Yeah.
Because it is a huge
Well, I can
problem.
relate, Mr. Mayor, if I make a personal instance as of yesterday with my own family, and having to use the emergency in Fort McLeod and then being told that my mother-in-law should be ambulanced to Lethbridge and, for a procedure. So, both ambulances were out. We're going to be gone for over an hour. The other ambulance was between towns and probably wouldn't get there for an hour. And so we were told to take her in ourselves to the emergency in Lethbridge, and a doctor would be waiting. An hour later, we saw a doctor. An hour later, the doctor informed us that the procedure that needed to be done could not be done over the weekend and that we had to come back.
Oh,
So if she had been sent by ambulance, there would have been a trip to Lethbridge and a trip back at what cost? For nothing. So I agree, there's more than just the ambulance
it's,
here, it's a
yeah.
systemic thing that needs to be addressed and looked at very carefully.
And the Transportation Society is a solution to that. That's where it
Right.
becomes a solution,
Tangible
not,
solutions.
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so
Good
we,
job.
yes, Marion.
We do have later on in the agendas, a request for decision regarding the Transportation Society, so,
Yeah.
if you want to move that up to this point, or we can wait and deal
do
with
it.
it.
Well,
It's on the agenda.
it's on the agenda, we'll hit it when it comes to it. I just wanted to get my views out, to get everybody's views out. It's more of a debate than a delegation, and that's what I wanted, so I think that went well.
Thank you very much.
You know,
Thanks
so
for
just-
coming.
As a transportation society, we really appreciate the support we get from the town and from the MD. You know, I've been called there twice now to the MD and to the town now, and your support is, you know, really been great, and we do appreciate it. And, you know, we have been working really hard ourselves to see what we can do, but sometimes you have to ask for help.
That's right. Nice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
you,
I
Howard.
want to thank you guys for coming, and our door is always open. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Likewise,
Thanks for
both
coming.
ways.
Thank you.
Do we have to leave? I'm kinda like
No.
sitting in the not-hot chair.
Have a chair. I was gonna say, these aren't,
If you want to
they're not
stay,
fancy
I'll-
MD chairs.
I was going to get up and shake your hand, but you're going to stay for a while.
We don't have microphones,
Yeah.
anything else.
All right. You guys are going to bolt?
Yeah.
Then I'm
Oh,
gonna
if they're
shake
gonna
your
hold, then
hand.
I'll shake your hand. That's why we don't have big chairs, people say.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks for
Good to see you. Brad, thank you. Mr. Mayor? Right on.
That was really good.
Oh, you bet. Thank you. This wasn't too
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug.
Good job, thanks, Kevin. Councilor Schlossberger, slide her over, buddy.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, excellent.
Love this man hug.
Yeah, the man hugs, there we go. All right, love.
She taught me well. Wow. She taught me well. Okay. You can stay.
No, you guys don't need me sitting here. I had a hard time not to vote either.
Hard habit, huh?
No.
Okay, we'll move into the action items. Number one, bylaw 1662, the fire service bylaw. Second and third reading. Marion, do you want to give us a quick overview?
Yes, bylaw 1662 and 1663 is presented both for second and third reading. This was in regards to a review of bylaws, and we separated the fire services bylaw into the two categories. The first bylaw, 1662, is to provide for the establishment and operation of the volunteer department, and the second is for the to provide for the protection and preservation of life and property within the municipality. So the first is the establishment of the department, the second is the actual operational side of things. So as was presented in the previous meetings, we did have a change in the appointment of a full-time fire chief and the filling of a vacancy, which would be done through a selection committee rather than just by recommendation of the fire department. And then on the fire services, the fire protection side, just looking at the fines and penalties of 300, 500, and 750 and combining those.
Okay, bylaw 1662, I can get a motion for a second reading.
I'll make that.
Go ahead.
Councillor Schultz? Question?
Moved by Councilor Schultz to give bylaw number 1662, the fire services bylaw, second reading.
All in favor? Carried. Third reading. Councillor Schlossberger, question?
Moved by Councilor Schlossberger to give bylaw number 1662, the fire services bylaw, third and final reading.
All in favor? Carried. Okay,
I have a question about 1663. Can I ask it now?
now's the time.
So on 1663, the fire protection charges were the fees for 200 and 100. Then it says a $300 credit shall be. Is that every household gets a free false alarm call?
One time.
Is that per calendar year or per whatever? It's
Per
not.
calendar year.
Okay. And then I like how it does. You can't accumulate it. You can't
Is it
build
per
it up.
calendar year?
I
No.
thought it was for calendar year.
No, on here.
That's what
So
it-
That's
what it
it's
says.
saying.
It says
Says
per
per
calendar
calendar
It is
year.
per calendar year.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right, per
Yeah.
calendar year,
Okay.
correct.
So it's
Yeah.
one false alarm type of thing, so nobody gets charged. Okay. Okay. I get a lot of questions around that actually, so I was kind of.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah, because
you
people are like,
intimate?
well, how come I got charged $300 for this and this person got a call and they didn't get charged? What was their second call and their first call? And yeah, I didn't know that
No, that's
until
good to know.
I went and asked them and
Yeah,
I
good
said,
to
well,
know.
so I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Okay,
So,
so, would somebody like to do second? Oh, there you go. Question?
Sorry, I wasn't looking.
Oh, Mike, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Moved by Councilor Cutler to give bylaw number 1663, the fire protection bylaw, second reading.
All in favor? Carried. Third reading. Councillor Carlson. Question?
Moved by Councilor Carlson to give bylaw number 1663, the fire protection bylaw, third and final reading.
All in favor? Carried. I should have said Councillor Cutler, not Mike.
That's okay.
Kind of slipped on you. Okay, number 3, bylaw 1675, records management retention bylaw. Marion.
so bylaw 1675 is a bylaw to regulate the retention and disposal of records within the town's purview. At this point, we haven't had any policies or bylaws in place to dictate the retention of our records, and so I've asked for that to be put into a bylaw. We do have regulations that are stipulated in certain legislation, like FOIP or the Elections Act, that we have to abide by. As well, Municipal Affairs has put out their recommended guidelines for the retention of documents. So all of these bodies and regulations have been taken into account on this bylaw that we're presenting tonight. This bylaw does not allow for the destruction of any original bylaws or minutes, although it does authorize us to put them into electronic format and then transfer those documents to either the museum or the provincial archives. So just for your information, even though we are authorized under legislation to be able to destroy those documents at a certain period of time, we've chosen not to do that for historic records. Nice. So this was presented to the Administrative Services Committee, and they are recommending that bylaw 1675 be put forward to council tonight for first reading.
Questions? Motion? Councillor Schultz? Question?
Moved by Counselor Schultz to give bylaw number 1675, the Records Management and Retention Bylaw, first reading.
All in favor? Carried. Number 4, bylaw 1677, Copter Bylaw Amendment. Marion?
Okay, so this is, what COPTER means is a community organization property tax exemption. And so bylaw 1526 is the original bylaw, and this bylaw is proposed to amend due to some regulation changes that came into effect on June 18th of 2019. So there are certain organizations under that regulation that meet the criteria that are able to apply to council to have their property tax exempt. They have now, under the regulation, included a definition of a resident association. So that would be a type of nonprofit organization that would qualify under the regulation for tax exemption. A residential association is defined in the regulation as a nonprofit that requires membership for residential property owners in a specific development area, that secures its membership fees by a caveat or encumbrance on each residential title, and that it is established for the purpose of managing and maintaining the common property, enhancing the quality of life for residents in the development area, and providing nonprofit sporting, educational, social, and recreation for the residents of that development area. So with the changes to the regulation, in your package there was, the regulations were included and they were highlighted for your information, I believe. So we're proposing first reading of the amendment to this bylaw. Schedule A of the bylaw is the actual regulation with the amendments highlighted and updated. Schedule B of the bylaw is updated for the application deadlines and the change in the regulations from November 30th to September 30th of the year prior to the tax exemption. So September 30th of 2019 for the 2020 tax year, for instance. As well, the date from the application change of date from February 15th of the taxation year to November 30th of the prior taxation year, and that's all to fall in line with the regulations. We're also recommending that Schedule C be removed altogether because it's simply a shortened form of the Schedule B, and we're requesting that all applicants be required to complete the long form, as it's not a cumbersome amount of additional information, but it does give us contact info and that kind of information. So the bylaw amendment is here presented for you tonight for first reading.
Questions?
Didn't have any.
Motion? Councillor Carlson? Question?
Moved by Counselor Carlson to give bylaw number 1677, the Copter Bylaw Amendment, first reading.
All in favor? Carried. Number 5, the Honorable K.C. Madhu, Minister of Municipal Affairs, re MSI funding and GTF funding. Marion?
So yeah, this is just confirmation of our funding that we will be receiving, our interim 2019 MSI capital allocation of $543,921, which includes the MSI as well as our basic municipal transportation grant funding, which are all combined into one now. Also our 2019 interim MSI operating allocation of $119,428, and our gas tax fund, which is the federal funding, in the amount of $427,142, which actually includes a $207,186. That is a one-time funding to top up our original gas tax grant.
We're just taking this for information.
Yes.
Number 6, correspondence, Alberta Transportation, potential meeting at Fall AUMA. Marion.
So Darren Davidson, the regional director, and Jerry Lau from Alberta Transportation have invited us to meet with them at the AUMA convention if we are interested. I
Can we meet
believe
them?
it was this council we met with
Same last-
with
Yeah, it's the
regards
same.
to the speed zones and the
Yeah.
intersection, same gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I don't believe we have anything on the agenda that we need to discuss with them.
We didn't get far last.
Didn't get much last time.
No.
Hey, we got their
That's a good
ear, what more do you
experience,
want?
That's all they give.
They
That's
gave
it.
us the time.
They give you the time and then they show you the door.
I
Would
wasn't a
they
part
be
of that.
someone to talk
Expanding
to about
our
the transportation
50, 70
society?
zones.
No, that's not wrong.
Didn't they come down and do some surveying and stuff of,
They did
of the
some
traffic
traffic.
and stuff? And
Yep.
Jason did the survey.
I wasn't
Our
a
own
part of that
people
one.
did
I
it.
wasn't a part of that one.
Anyways, we did not get any moving of speed zones or any enlightenment out of that, so I would say that's a wash.
Okay.
Next one is invitation from Fortis to customer reception at AUMA. We'll take that for information. Number 8, correspondence, Claresholm Terry Fox Run, 39th Annual Terry Fox Run. They'll be starting from the fire hall on Sunday, and they're requesting somebody to come say hello, so I'll go do that. I don't think they're looking for funds.
Mm-mm.
Do you want us to RSVP
Yep.
for you?
You gonna run it too?
Oh, yeah, are you getting
Are
run?
Come
you
on.
crazy?
Come on. We'll have fun.
No.
Gonna find you a mobility scooter.
I'm going to go volunteer and hand out water.
That's very nice. Are you doing that?
Yeah.
Cool. All right on.
Well, you know who
Okay.
runs it.
Tracy?
Uh-huh.
Oh. That's
Anyways, one of the things to take note of for the Terry Fox Run is they are dying out in southern Alberta. There's very few left, and our town has still got one. So it's something to be aware of and for the town to support. So, anyways,
It is a heck of a good story. I really like going. You know, it's just really impactful, and
Mhm.
it's got a good support system here. It'd be cool if more people supported it because it's
yeah, you did it with Troy
it
last year.
inspires people.
It is fading away.
It is, and a lot of towns
Yeah.
don't have it anymore. There's fewer and fewer in southern Alberta.
Yeah.
Okay, number 9, correspondence. Cheryl Friesen, limit on number of dogs per resident. Now, I read this letter, and I have to agree, like 15 dogs in a home is
Yeah.
I
bad
thought
for
we had a
health.
bylaw that had limited it to 4.
And
5
I
in a
couldn't
home.
find a number
No,
anywhere.
I know.
I went and looked and looked and looked and can't. I was the
There
same
is
way.
no
Wow.
limit in
There's
the-
there's no
There's
limit.
none.
Mm.
And looking at the information on Fort McLeod and Nanton,
Mm-hmm.
3.
I would recommend 3.
Mm-hmm.
We should have a
Just-
limit.
I was
A heads up,
Because,
we have several residents that have quite a number more than 3.
but would you, now
Would that be
I
something
would
that
not
you
want-
grandfather
Grandfather.
in?
I think it's something that we could, give them years to, it's negotiable. It's something that we'll let the bylaw people deal with, not at this level.
Some kind of
I do
license.
I
that
do
you
I
could
do think
purchase.
it does need to have a number on it.
It
Yes.
does
When I was
have a
reading it,
number.
and
I
then
agree.
with us being Claresholm in the MD, I was going to recommend that we follow the same number and the same, basically the number 4 in the MD of Willow Creek's bylaw of 1726, just so that there's no confusion.
What's
So
the
that
number
town,
there?
they have no more than 3 dogs
Yeah,
over
same as
1
now.
year old,
Yeah.
unless they've got a valid permit to operate a kennel. That way, it doesn't matter if you live in town or if you're out of town, your numbers are the same.
Now,
Yeah,
I've
that
been
makes
fortunate,
sense.
I've never lived next door to somebody with 5 or 10 or 15 dogs.
No.
I cannot imagine living next door to that. And I do know that just for watching the news, when you see situations with that many, like 15 dogs in a house, that's more than just a health issue.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we really should look at our bylaws, and there should be a number on it. And 2 may be a little too tight. 3 seems reasonable to me, but what do you guys think?
No, I know a number of residents in this community that have far more than 3 dogs, and they're really good at it, and they take care of these dogs because the animal rescue shelter gets animals in there, and they care and they can do it. So I don't know.
But is that temporary care or they permanently have?
No, some of them house like 5 and 6 dogs. They were a shelter, and they were going to be, they had no life living in the
They
shelter.
rotate.
And
Well, they
Cause
rotate
some of
with
them get
some people foster
get
them.
find homes.
Yeah, some foster.
Oh,
So then
that's-
they
That's a
just
different
get,
situation. They're fostering. I mean, that's something that could be addressed in the bylaw to permit carers to have foster homes so they could rotate.
but there is
animals
people
through.
who have privately owned.
Oh, I'm sure there is. There's one in this letter right here.
It's in a position where, yes, some people have larger properties, have the ability to take care of them, and they're very dedicated to those animals. However, as setting a regulation and
Yeah.
setting that precedence, I think that's more than reasonable. And like Craig said, to follow the MD number so it's consistent throughout.
3.
I think that's wise. Grandfather it for the folks that currently do, because we do not want to
We're not
take
asking
somebody
people.
that
Right.
No.
yeah, that's
But if our bylaw enforcement does find a home with 15 animals in it, I would say the health department should be called. Because that's a kennel. That's not a home.
Yeah, yeah.
it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, and I think that's out of our realm, not to step into. We set the limit of 3, if that's what you guys agree to, and we allow our bylaw enforcement to grandfather and negotiate with each individual case.
In the MD bylaw, you, right at the end of that bylaw, you said unless they're a licensed kennel?
Right.
Or can we add in there or connected? Like, I am just worried about some of these people who work with carers and stuff like that. who
Well, we
do
gotta
have-
we gotta
can have
protect them.
something to say that if they're connected with a licensed kennel or a process that they
Kennels,
could,
fostering system.
right, or something, we can put that in there.
Yeah,
as
we
a-
gotta protect them.
Right, because we want to keep that going, but.
I don't know that I agree with you. How do you regulate how many babies someone has and how many cats someone has?
And cats should be regulated too.
Yeah.
We've
I think
been
that is rough
down that
territory
road.
for our bylaw officer. I think there's a lot of people that are really adept at having a number of animals. I don't think we can define that 3 is the
But
maximum
I
that
think
you
you
can
never
have.
see, you never see one family have 15 children though. Not anymore.
Not
But
anymore.
see, you did, like, what
But-
right do
well,
you have?
no.
I guess you don't, so to say, but I mean,
You can't equate animals to children. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I think, but you're also infringing on what Ryan's responsibility is, and I think you could potentially be creating that becomes a job as like an SPCA person.
That is part of his job. It's in every town.
Right, I
in southern
understand that,
Alberta.
but I
That's
think
part of
when you
his-
regulate
it's in
that
his
number
job
and you
description.
find out how many people in this town have more than 3.
But he's not gonna go door to door. It's gonna be complaint driven.
yeah, you can't just.
It puts a
And has there
A
been
check and-
complaints on this person before, on this situation before?
Actually, there has, yes, numerous.
So it puts a check and balance in where it gives the bylaw an opportunity to have a conversation, right?
Right.
So even if it's grandfathered now, and it comes down to a licensing issue when dog or cat licenses are put out, it gives that ability to regulate it before it becomes an issue. And if we grandfather the folks that currently are above that limit, which is a common sense thing to do,
And can you, what does that mean to grandfather something?
It means if the bylaw gets passed and they have 5 dogs, they don't have to go get rid of 2 dogs tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just when 2 unfortunately pass away, you're not allowed to replace those because you got to keep within the 3. Your 5 dogs are fine now.
But I think it's also due diligence to the community too, because if you got somebody who's running 15 dogs, those 15 dogs, I'm worried about the neighbors, I'm worried about the people across the street.
Yeah.
But if you're
It-
not
it-
hearing from people, if
Well,
we're
we
not
are.
getting complaints,
We
this is
are.
one incident where someone went into someone's
And
house,
if-
but is
and
there a
if you're-
string of them? Then I
And
think
if
it's
you're
a
in a,
problem.
That I
and
don't
if you're in a
Yeah.
position where you are getting complaints, and
There's no-
it comes down to the bylaw officer, and the bylaw officer says there's nothing I can do about it because there's nothing within our bylaws to help regulate that.
which
Yes.
has happened in this case.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I know it
It
sucks.
gives-
to,
it gives
to-
bylaw
to talk
officers some
frankly
teeth
about
instead
this,
of
I
getting
almost
teeth.
feel like we should go in camera for 5 minutes, but but we can't just arbitrarily do that. So, it's a case-by-case business.
Can I ask for Marion's opinion, please, or perspective on this?
Well, I think what you have to keep in mind is that when you're talking about regulating the bylaw, it's not about an individual and the circumstance around that individual. It's about what's best for the town as a whole in a general format, right? So, as has been said, a lot of bylaws, a lot of animal control bylaws do have numbers. This was discussed when, with previous council, when we were amending the dog bylaw and looking at a cat bylaw. At that time, there was no appetite to limit the numbers, and that's why it is the way it is. But, you know, you have to think of this in terms of not one individual, but the greater
The better
benefit
good.
of the community and how that impacts the greater community.
So, would anybody be willing to make a motion? And then we can see where it falls.
I'll make a motion that to amend our current dog bylaw, that we amend the same wording as the MD Willow Creek's bylaw 1726 number 4 and add that into ours with the addition of the foster houses for cares or whatever if they're helping.
Yeah, have them come back with the wording.
But
Yeah,
something
so
along
can-
those lines.
Can the motion be then to direct administration to amend the bylaw, whatever that bylaw number is, sorry, 1628, to limit the number of dogs to 3?
Yep.
With the ability to allow for some exceptions regarding kenneling or fostering, and grandfathering of present situations. And then we can amend the bylaw how we deem the wording to be appropriate.
Yeah, something along those lines sounds good.
I think there's the admin services meeting between
Okay.
next
With,
Did we get that all down?
with the ability for exceptions.
So it puts it into a perspective that if there is a problem, not with this situation, but in the future,
And grandfathering.
that the
There's something to use, a tool
there's
to use.
there's a tool to use if there's a problem situation. I don't deem this necessarily as a problem situation. I deem it as an unfortunate incident, which it is. And I had a great conversation with Cheryl about it, and I think that's kind of her situation as well. But when she did a little bit of research on it, because she had concerns, and seeing that there wasn't anything that you could turn around and go, if there is a problem, because my understanding is they were smaller dogs, but her concern was that if you had somebody that a gate got left open, a teenager came through a back gate, and they had 10 German Shepherds, and a little girl the size of my daughter ran away from those dogs, and they want to play catch as a pack because that's a game. That could turn into a real issue, right? So this helps. That helps regulate that.
Do we have something now?
Yes.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to direct administration to amend bylaw number 1628 to limit the number of dogs per household to 3, with the ability for exceptions for kenneling or fostering, and grandfathering of present households with more than 3 dogs.
Any questions on that?
Do we need to add in, I know on the other bylaws, they had age restrictions, what they considered a dog. Some were like no more, I think it was 6 months and some were a year. Do we need to stipulate?
We have some of those within ours, like they don't have to be licensed until they're a certain age.
Oh, okay, perfect. Then, okay, I'm good with that, how it was read.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 10, correspondence, UFA, or sorry, not UFA. United Farmers Historical Society and Claresholm and District Museum invitation for the opening of the Louise McKinney exhibit on
October 5th.
your
Doesn't say.
PDF may not have opened,
No, it didn't.
because it didn't for me this
No,
morning.
I couldn't get that to open.
It's Saturday, October 5th, from 1:30 to 2:30.
1:30 to 2:30, and of
And they
course
have
Mike's
had
away.
confirmation from
I am.
Lieutenant Governor, Roger Reed, and the Minister of Economic Development.
Okay, I'll put it in my calendar. October
5th.
5th.
Had a wedding to go to.
Of course you do. Okay, we'll move on. Number 11,
Are we
course.
RSVPing for anyone?
Oh, do we have to RSP?
Yeah, we should.
If they want to.
I will be there.
It's like a month away.
I on the invitation they failed to mention there's a show they're providing at the United Church that night. They've hired 5 women who dress up and act out the pink tea in a kind of
At the United Church.
comic way, yeah, and they're
It's
gonna sell
probably in the
tickets to
PDF
that.
that won't open.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
I think it's really, yeah, cool.
Very cool. At the United Church.
Okay, well, I'll go. Is anybody else going? Gavin's going? That's it? You guys, come on.
The schedule is the schedule.
Lieutenant
We'll see
Governor's
where that
gonna be
is the
there.
week before.
Okay. Let them know that at least 3 members of council will show up.
What's the date of it?
I'm just hoping one of you guys jump
What day is it?
I will try to jump across the
in.
back alley.
Go for
He
3.
said 3, hoping somebody else shows
somebody
up.
will.
I will do my
Yes,
best
two.
to jump across the back alley. I might be in my coat.
Yeah, you're close.
Okay, number 11.
Take a break.
Correspondence, Woodshed Martial Arts invitation to grand opening.
That's at Sept.
Where is this and what is it?
Mackin's Welding.
Yeah, old Bob Shaw.
Oh, it's in the
Sean
old
there.
Mac and Welding.
Yeah.
Oh, cool beans.
Oh, so
Isn't
that's
that Lane
Whatever
Droshi?
Broderson.
Is that Lane Droshi?
Yes.
Right, that's Lane Droshi.
Yeah.
Lane
Right. Yeah, they
Oh, that's Lane DeRoche, the one she was gonna put out in her yard.
Yeah. Matt Muldoon.
Yeah.
Nicely
Oh,
done.
okay,
Had to think about it for a second.
okay. Looking for a volunteer?
I can go.
Put them both down.
Friday, Friday the 13th.
Again,
Your zombie walk.
that's this.
Well, this is at
that's
10
coming-
a.m.
That's this
I
coming.
don't know how long it takes you to get
Yeah,
out.
it's-
Your zombie
There's
walk.
This Thursday.
It's at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
10 a.m.
I,
You schedule meetings for 10 a.m. So
yeah, I know, 'cause they're easy for me.
Mhm.
I may go to that one, but at least 2 of us will be there. Okay, number 12, correspondence. Belgium Animal Rescue Society Raise the Wolf fundraiser. Marianne.
So CARES is hosting their Raise the Wolf fundraiser here in Claresholm on Friday, September 27th at 5:30 at the community center. And they're asking for council to consider either a donation for the amount of the rent that they need to pay or a silent auction item. So we have done, baskets up in the past. We can do that for, say, $100 value or $50 value or whatever. Or if you so desire, I guess you could pass a motion to donate the rental
Community
fee.
center is what they're renting, right? The community center hall?
And how much is that?
I like that.
750, I think it is.
715.
Just for the hall, 600,
Just for the hall, 600.
not that.
No, they gotta
includes
use the kitchen.
Huh?
Don't they have to use the kitchen?
What for? Are they
They
cooking?
didn't put the amount down here and I'm sorry off the
It's a
top of my
question
head.
mark.
I'm thinking a basket.
Oh, here it says value, rent or a silent, yeah, so didn't need a value. And this is, there's no meal with this.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a
Sell
great
tickets,
show.
Yeah, but
Go
it's
on,
supplied
it's a
by
show.
somebody.
Yeah.
Catered.
And it's the comedians from the Just for Laughs circuit.
Right.
They're good.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a real fun night.
But we'll be just coming back from Edmonton that day,
Yeah, it's too bad.
right?
yeah,
27th, we come
that's
back.
the reason I didn't buy any tickets, cause
Okay. I just want to make sure that that's,
we dragging in here
I
late.
mean, I think giving them, I like the idea of giving them the hall so that the money they do raise stays with them and they don't have to worry about paying the bill on that aspect.
Make a motion,
I'll make a
$600.
motion that we donate the hall for the
Donate $600.
$600 towards the rent of the hall for the Raise the Roof
So it's
event.
bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Any other debate on this?
That's really generous.
I was thinking silent auction item.
Yeah?
I
Me
was,
too.
because do you notice how much we already give them?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, we are really generous.
$22,500 every year.
Yeah.
Last year, they went to Stavely Hall.
Yeah, no, I'm good with it. So,
Right.
Didn't look
No.
okay, can we get a question, please?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to support the Carson Annual Rescue Society's Raise the Wolf fundraiser with a donation of $600 to go towards the rental of the community center.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 13, request for decision, ATCO Gas Pipelines Limited franchise agreement. Marion,
So, ATCO Gas has a franchise agreement with the town of Claresholm, and basically what that does is gives them exclusive rights to operate their gas distribution services within the town of Claresholm. With that agreement comes a franchise fee that is paid to the town and is charged to the customer, but then is paid back to the town. This agreement has been in place since April of 2005, and the rate has been 10%. Annually, we are able to adjust that rate. We just have to give notice to ATCO prior to, I believe, November. So administration though is recommending that we leave the franchise fee the same for 2020 at 10%. Any increase in that franchise fee is just a direct transfer down to the customers.
utilities are expensive enough without us adding to the burden,
Right.
I feel.
Agreed.
But you can go up to 35%.
Yeah,
Is that, that's what it
can you
says?
That's what
imagine?
it says.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of phone calls over that one.
Hey?
I'll make a motion to keep it the same at 10%.
Oh, look at you go.
4? Councillor Zimmer, it's 4, not 10.
Mr. Zimmer?
Hello?
It's 4%? Not 10.
I thought it was 10%.
It says 10%.
It's
right?
10%.
Yeah, it's 10%.
Is it 10?
It is.
It says right here, the franchise agreement
Yeah, it's
unchanged
No,
at
it is
10%.
10. I apologize, I'm sorry. I have it wrong in
She
the
thought you were
motion.
jumping at 6%.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Look at me go.
you all of a sudden, you look pretty bad for a minute
It's clause 4A.
Sorry.
there. Okay, we'll start again. Question, please.
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to maintain the franchise fee percentage at 10% for 2019. Oh, 2020.
2020?
My goodness.
You're in Fortis, that's the problem. It's for the gas.
Sorry, she just has the wrong
Oh, she jumped ahead one.
franchise agreement resolution.
Okay.
It happens.
So moved by Councillor Zimmer to keep the franchise fee percentages the same at 10% for 2020 as per clause 4A of the natural gas distribution system franchise agreement with ATCO Gas and Pipelines Limited.
All in favor?
My goodness.
Carried. Number 14, a request for decision. Child Care Society, CFEP project support letter. Marion,
So, the Child Care Society has been approved for the scope change for the multi-use facility, which, for their grant that was accessed last year. So if we do move to the new location, depending on the vote on September 30th, that project would require subdivision servicing and a parking lot development because it's in a separate location. And so the Child Care Society is applying for a CFEP grant for those portions of the project. The deadline is September 15th for the small stream. The total estimated budget for that is $47,739.25. The grant funding to be requested is $23,869.62, and then the town would commit the $23,869.63, which is the other 50%. So we would be looking for a motion to provide a letter of support and commitment for municipal funding for that. if the grant is successful.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Schultz? Question?
Moved by Councillor Schultz to provide a letter of support and commitment for municipal funding in the amount of $23,869.63 for the Clarkson Child Care Society's CFIP grant application for the parking lot, subdivision, fencing, and servicing of the new facility.
All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, Kinsman, CFIP grant application, Emerson Park Playground. Right,
Okay, so the Kinsmen have been participating in the Amundsen Park Upgrade Committee and have had a representative there. And as is in your package further on with the information brief, but the committee has now established a design that they would like to look at. And so one of the components of that is a new playground to be built at the existing southeast playground location. And the Kinsmen would like to apply for a CFIP grant to help support that project. The project is part of the plan recommended by the committee, as I stated. And the Kinsmen sponsored the original playground within the park, and so they have the desire to assist with the new one as well. The new playground will be upgraded to integrate play areas for ages 2 to 5 as well as 5 to 12. And also would be looking at accessibility for all those that need be with the materials that would be used. WSP has estimated the cost of that project for the playground at approximately $120,000 with additional base prep and work of rubber matting, etc., for an additional approximately $40,000. So the Kinsmen again would like to apply to the small stream of the CFIP grant due September 15th. That maximum is $125,000. So in this case, they would be applying for $79,820, which is 50% of the cost of that playground upgrade.
who would like to? Councillor Schlossberger? Question?
Moved by Councillor Schlossberger to write a letter of support for the Kinsman Club of Claresholm's application to the Community Facility Enhancement Program for the purpose of constructing a new playground at Amundsen Park and provide matching funds / in-kind donation for the project in the amount of $79,820.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 16, request for decision, Lions Club CFEP grant application for Amundsen Park. Marion.
Okay, again, this is a partner that's been involved in the Amundsen Park upgrade committee. And so one of the redesigns within that park is a new structure that is designed to be built at the northeast entrance to the park. The idea behind this structure is a location where they can have small events, photographs, and have a visible entrance to the park. Again, the Lions Club is prepared to apply for a grant. The estimated cost of the concrete, the structure, the concrete, the electrical, and the apron around the gazebo is approximately $45,000.
Anybody like to make a motion?
I've got a question first.
Okay.
So our matching funds, where do we pull the funds from for that match?
Be part of our, we budget every year for parks, park
So
improvement.
it's coming out of that, we've set that aside. Okay.
Yes, the Amundsen Park upgrade was part of our 5-year capital plan.
Yeah.
And I'd like to make a motion.
Councillor Zimmer?
To support the Lions. Sorry, I was caught in the middle of the swallow.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to write a letter of support towards the Claresholm Lions Club's application to the Community Facility Enhancement Program for the purpose of constructing a new gazebo and entrance within Amundsen Park and provide the matching funds not to exceed $22,500.
All in favor? Carried.
I didn't get my question.
Number 17, a request for decision, letter of support, Willow Creek Ag Society.
Appreciate it.
Marion.
Okay, so the Willow Creek Ag Society has requested a letter of support. Again, it's an application to the Sept.
Same one.
Small stream, maximum 125,000, which is the amount that they will be applying for, I understand. And it's to continue with the cost of completion of the new building. In this case, they are not asking for us to confirm the matching funds. They will supply the matching funds.
Wow, so good.
I'll make a
So they're
motion
just looking for the letter.
just of support.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Cutler. Question.
Moved by Councillor Cutler to write a letter of support towards the Willow Creek Ag Society's application to the Community Facility Enhancement Program grant for the purpose of completion of the interior of the new riding facility at the Claresholm Agriplex.
All in favor? Carried. Number 18, a letter of support for the CFAP grant for the Transportation Society. Marion.
Okay, so we just got this request in, and maybe Lise would like to speak to it, but I know the request came to her. They're looking at applying for a SIP grant, which is a community improvement program. And the amount, I'm sorry, it's escaped me right now. I have that email somewhere, I don't even have my phone.
Sorry, Marion.
Sorry, give me half a sec here, we'll look up the amount on that, okay?
Is this the one from Gabrielle?
Yes.
Yeah, she didn't give me any of the information for those. I'm sorry.
It'll take just 1 second here. Again, not asking for any matching funds, but just looking for the letter of support. Oh, she doesn't have an amount in the letter, sorry.
No.
She doesn't.
Hmm.
Can we make a motion without the amount?
Yeah, it's just a letter of support for your application.
Please.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Councillor Schultz.
It is. Oh, sorry, it's the Community Initiatives Program, not Community Improvements Program.
Question.
Yeah.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Schultz to write a letter of support towards the Claresholm District Transportation Society application to the Community Initiatives Program grant for the purpose of enhancing their services.
All in favor? Carried. Number 19, a request for decision, policy manual review and updates, finance. Marion.
Okay, so again, this is the process we've been going through to update all of our policies within our manual. These have all been presented to the Administrative Services Committee, and they are being presented as recommended tonight. I will go through each one. We're looking at section 3 this time, which is the finance section. First, it's the policy 3.0.01, the corporate credit card policy. We just had a few minor changes, and basically that was just shortening how we reconcile the monthly statements, because there was an added step in there that is unnecessary. And so it was taken out. Basically what happens is that once the statement is reconciled, then it is reviewed by the Director of Corporate Services, rather than having the director review them, then having them reconciled, and then having the third review. Policy 3.0.05 is unbudgeted expenditure policy. So that would be requesting funds outside of budget approval. The policy states that the previous policy stated that expenditures outside of budget needed council approval. That's already dictated by the Municipal Government Act. So we recommend that a new policy be there to replace the existing policy. The new policy allows for some management reallocation of budgets. So if we had an increase in material costs in one category, then I would be able to offset that by a decrease in another budget line item. As you're aware, in the budget, we we have, 1,000 line items or whatever, and so it's just a matter of just allocating within that department, but staying within budget. So it doesn't affect the bottom line as long as there's no change in the service level to the community would be one of the things that we would be looking at. One of the other things though that we did add into there was that it allowed for a 10% variance from the budget by the CAO, so I would be authorized to allow for a 10% variance, and that would only be on a single line item. So that would allow us to be able to award contracts or procurement in a timely fashion rather than saying, you know what, it's 5% above budget, so I've got to bring it back to council and then I've got to wait for 2 weeks before there's council meeting. So it just allows us to move forward. But again, it's on a single line item, so it's not giving me 10% of, the entire budget, right? Like it's on single items, and obviously as a CAO, I would need to use my discretion in those matters as well. The other requirement would be that if I was to authorize that, then I would report that to council at the next meeting. Okay. The next is 3.0.10, which is a grant funding policy. So basically, the old policy stated that council would be intimately involved in grant applications, so including reviewing and approval of final grant applications. So the new policy is more in line with our current practices where it helps us ensure that grant deadlines are not missed. So we do require competitive grants will look for council approval, which, as you're aware, we bring those forward to you. But it doesn't necessarily have to have council review and approve those final applications. So that's an administrative function. And so we've aligned the policy to meet with those functions. So you, again, will know that we're making the grant application, but you won't actually have to approve the wording in the final application.
Thank you.
Policy 3.1.05, which is purchasing and tendering policy. We didn't do any changes to that other than some formatting, and then we moved some of the definitions from the end of the document to near to the beginning of the policy. Policy 3.1.06, which is continuing service contracts duration policy. So we're replacing the old policy, which basically just dealt with banking and audit services, and it specified that those would only be 5-year contracts. So the intent behind this policy would be to ensure that the town doesn't get too comfortable with one contractor or another and assume that we're getting the best value. We have a responsibility to ensure that our public funds are getting us the best service possible. So we've included this policy, within this policy, other services or contracts that we would have in place, such as our assessor, our photocopier lease, our postage meter, those kind of things that are ongoing contracts. So the policy is a bit broader, but it also allows us for more flexibility on the contract terms at the discretion of the CAO or council. So in essence, what we would be doing is on some of those continual contracts, we would be retendering those on a regular basis to ensure that we're getting the best value for public funds. Policy 3.2.01 is the TCA capitalization and amortization, which is tangible capital assets policy. And that is a recent policy. We just updated it after the last audit, if you recall. And so there's no change to that other than the formatting. And policy 3.2.05 is their investment policy. So again, we are recommending that we have a replacement policy. The old one was very brief and basically stated that all monies were to be invested locally. And as you know, the banking industry has changed. We don't invest locally. We invest in ATB or BMO or CIBC, and we actually deal with individuals outside of our local branches when we're talking about investment. So again, just thinking about the stewardship of public money and you know, we wanna make sure that, we focus on fund security and investment returns. And that should be the premise of our investments. The new policy then focuses on the town's needs of capital preservation and liquidity. So, in other words, accessibility of those funds as we invest them. Also, it's got to focus on permissible investments. So the Municipal Government Act has very strict guidelines on how we can invest money. But the policy actually is even more conservative than what the Municipal Government Act allows. So we want to make sure that we have the security of the investment that we put in. So this policy was developed and drafted from a policy that was used as a template in a government finance officer's training that Blair undertook. So. And then policy 3.2.10, which is an inventory policy, it's very recent, and that was after our audit. We did some changes to our inventory policy. So really we just had some formatting changes there. And it's stated that the policy applied to the fiscal year in which it was passed plus all subsequent fiscal years, so we took that out because a policy is a policy and it applies to all years. So that's a lot to be said, but those policies are there presented. As I said, the Administrative Services Committee have reviewed these policies and are making a recommendation for council to approve.
Okay, anybody?
Make
Councillor
the
Moore?
motion to adopt those approved policies?
Question?
Moved by Councillor Moore to adopt the updated town policies as follows, effective September 9th, 2019. 3.0.01, the corporate credit card policy, version 1.0. 3.0.05, unbudgeted expenditure policy, version 1.0. 3.0.10, grant funding policy, version 1.0. 3.1.05, purchasing and tendering policy, version 1.0. 3.1.06, continuing service contracts duration policy, version 1.0. 3.2.01, the TCA capitalization and amortization, version 1.0. 3.2.05, investment policy, version 1.0. 3.2.10, the inventory policy, version 1.0.
All in favor?
Go Kareem.
Carried.
Girl, that's a lot of work.
Request for decision. Date for strategic plan update. Marion?
I'll take a drink after that. So I'm requesting that council consider a date for an update to our strategic plan. The latest strategic plan was developed in 2017. After the election, it was 2017 to 2021. And because we were in the process of developing our 3-year operational, our 3rd year out goes beyond 2021, as well as our 5-year capital goes beyond that. So I would like council to do the work on doing the update to the strategic plan so that we make sure that our budgeting is meeting with council's priorities. So I have some proposed dates. I have spoken to the facilitator that we've used in the past. And I'm suggesting a Friday evening, Saturday, or if you want, just a Saturday, however you want to do it. But I think if we do Friday evening and Saturday morning, we probably should be fairly good there. I don't think that a lot of your priorities have changed, but for instance, Councillor Cutler has not been involved in those at this point, so I think that's a value process for council to go through. We do have grant funding available to us still with our council relations budget that we can use for this as well, because we'll make that a component of the strategic planning.
Yes.
So the dates I have recommended are October 18th and 19th, or October 25th and 26th.
I'm good on either.
Really?
I can't make the 25th.
18th and 19th
Oh,
works
yeah.
better for me.
I'm away on vacation.
Are you?
Can't make it. It was good. 18th, 19th was good for me.
The 18th is Healthcare Aid Day. That's a holiday for you. Are you sure you want to?
It's a holiday for me, sir. Wow. Wow.
18th of the holiday for who?
I got nothing on either one of those weekends in my agenda yet, so I'm fine with whatever's picked.
Yeah.
1819, does that work for everybody?
And did you say that'd be a Friday evening, Saturday
job is-
type of thing, or is it an all day Friday?
Understand.
No,
all day
Friday evening,
fluid.
Saturday morning,
Wrap up type thing. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
or Saturday, we're usually done by 2, 3
Yeah,
o'clock.
okay. Either, yeah, 18th, 19th works for me.
Okay.
That's the majority date?
So can we get a motion to that effect?
Make the motion that we have a strategic plan on the 18th and 19th of October?
Putting in my calendar before I forget. Question?
Moved by Councillor Moore to hold the strategic planning session on October 18th and 19th, 2019.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving on. Number 21, request for decision, Claresholm District Transportation Society. This comes back to our delegation and our, whether we give them $5,000 or not. And again, I would state that putting them in a loan position
Right.
is foolish.
Wow.
I don't see them being ever able to repay it. We don't wanna see them fold. I would recommend we do it in a grant.
Well, it just puts added pressure on them that they think they have to repay it and they have to budget for it. And so, I mean, I agree totally that if we can give it to them in a grant form, then it's,
Yeah, like we'll be
Moving
giving it to
forward.
them, they'll repay half the loan to the MD, so we end up splitting the $10,000 with the
Right.
MD.
So that's how that.
That's how it'll end.
I'm just wanting to know with your, like, we're not given, the
No.
the 5,000 grant would pay our half to the
No,
MD?
We should be careful, and Marion's got something to say, we should be careful here that we're not giving them the money. We're going to split the $10,000 with the MD, but our part, I want to see as a grant personally.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Marion, you wanna?
Yeah, what I was gonna suggest is that it would be appropriate for the funding to go to the Transportation Society with stipulation that that 5,000 be used to pay then the portion of the loan from the MD.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it ends
But
up
the grant should go
$10,000.
Yeah.
directly to the Transportation.
I'm fine with that.
And the motion will have to read, so as it does
That 5 makes it to the MD.
not end up 15.
Yeah. But the Transportation Society would then have to write the check.
So does anybody have,
Hold on, let's go ahead.
There was just a couple of things that I wanted to bring to council's attention, as a follow-up to our meeting that we had with the Transportation Society. Blair and I met with Howard and Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
It talked about quite a bit of it tonight, but, as with regards to AHS funding and, how the funding is received from the MD of Willow Creek, and the County of Vulcan. Also, the town of Sept gives $1,500 and Granham and Fort McLeod do not give them anything, but they do use their service. Fort McLeod not as much as some of the others. The FCSS funding that comes from the town of Vulcan is under the Alberta Rural Development Network grant, so that could be a grant that perhaps we could pursue that,
Sure.
that could assist them. But there's a number of recommendations that, administration is making in our background here. First is that perhaps we do need to look at increasing our annual funding level. It's been 10,000 since 2011, and as we all know, those costs have increased. In discussions with the Transportation Society, a lot of their drivers used to be volunteers, and that's not the case anymore, so that of course has increased their costs. I think though, as part of increasing that, we should have a condition that they submit annual budgets, and we actually talked with them. We will sit down and help them create a 3-year operational budget so that they understand where their costs are in relation to what their revenue is. And then also to break that out into a a broader picture, as the mayor had said earlier. You know, if Vulcan County is self-sufficient and town of Clarisholm is self-sufficient, where's the gaps? But if one or the other is not self-sufficient, then those are really important details that we need to understand as you as council contribute money to a service. You want to make sure that it's providing the service to your residents, right?
Yep.
And then also, I think that we need to look at perhaps a different fee structure for transportation to those facilities where there isn't grant money coming in from the municipalities, and whether that be, so I think just a complete review of the fee structure. And then also, work with them in lobbying government for change to that AHS transportation via ambulance or the transportation society. So that's in essence the follow-up.
Okay, well, in that, with that, along with that, I would like to see administration, once we got a little better handle on the funding aspect, I would like to have you arrange a meeting between the MD and ourselves, so we can discuss it further.
Well, can I meet administratively, is that
Yeah,
okay?
and I said that to Marianne first, that the two CEOs meet, and possibly me and Marianne could be there also if you wanted. And then, once we have a kind of a guideline, then we bring in both councils. But that's what I agreed with the MD brief.
So we're in a position with all the information that I've seen today that we're giving $22,500 to CARES to take care of stray cats and dogs, and $10,000 to seniors in our vulnerable population to get to medical appointments.
And that's part of what Marion said, we haven't reviewed it in a long time.
I
And
think that's
it should have been
backwards.
at least keeping up with inflation. It's definitely fallen behind. It's a valid point you make there, Councillor Carlson. Okay, so we will do that, but in the interim, the $5,000.
Is that
Are we gonna make a motion to grant $5,000 in that wording?
But well, actually, Councillor Zimmer started that motion, did you not? In your discussion?
No, mine was just I was just
Okay, well,
asking.
Councillor Cutler, but in the motion, we want to clarify that the money is to go through the transportation to pay the MD.
Back to the MD.
Yes.
So we're
For that-
splitting the $10,000 with the MD.
Right,
But ours will be a grant, not a loan.
right,
We don't expect the 5 back.
no.
Because they can't pay it back. You're just putting pressure on them for.
Right, that added stress of, okay, we gotta keep this in mind, that we got this $10,000 to pay back.
I think even the MD is under the impression that they're
Right.
not getting it back either.
Right,
Yeah,
Which is fine.
they kind of backtracked there. and
Yeah, they
said
did.
that.
okay.
And I'm guessing that they'll change their, once they get the 5 from us, they'll probably
Yeah.
forgive the other part right away. Did we come up with a wording? Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to increase operational grant funding to the Clarisholm District Transportation Society in 2019 in the amount of $5,000 to assist with repayment of the loan received for $10,000 from the MD of Low Creek. The funding to come from general operational reserves and refer the 2020 funding to budget discussions. And also to request the Transportation Society provide to the town an annual submission of completed budgets and quarterly, semi-annual, annual budget to
You're
actual
long-winded.
reporting.
Sounds exactly like what I said.
Holy crow, Mike.
Great job, Mike.
Thanks.
All in favor? Councillor Cutler's long-winded motion. Carried. Okay, we'll move on to information items. Anything in there that anybody wants to ask questions about?
No, I need to give you some information first.
Uh-oh. Go
We
ahead.
have some information briefs prior to the information items.
Okay. Oh, I see, yeah, all right, 21, police costing model. You wanna give us something on that?
You bet I do. So in your package is a copy of the police costing model engagement backgrounder, they call it. So Alberta Justice and Solicitor General released their plans to adjust the costing model for that applies to communities in Alberta. Those communities are rural, so MDs and counties, as well as urbans with a population of 5,000 and less, or under 5,000, sorry. As part of that process, they're asking for elected officials and administrative municipal leaders to take part in an engagement process in order to conduct a thorough and effective review of the current model. So on Friday, last Friday, I participated in a webinar that was hosted by the Alberta Justice and Solgen's office. At that time, I asked them to send me a spreadsheet of the proposed model and the costs that would be directed to the town of Claresholm. So what they've done is they've used equalized assessment along with population and created a formula based on that for the percentage of the cost of policing within the municipalities. Those municipalities that we're talking about, there's 291 municipalities who currently do not pay for RCMP funding. We fall under the provincial contract for RCMP funding. They are proposing in this model that all 291 municipalities pay at least a share of the cost of that police funding. So again, I've asked for those specific to Claresholm. We did have some examples, but I don't want to use those because it's not a true reflection of what the town of Claresholm's cost would be. With the equalized assessment and the population, they've also added some cost modifiers into this model. So in other words, subsidies, and that would be based on those communities who have a record of a shadow population. So a shadow population is those people who live and work in the community but do not reside as a census poll would be. So their residence is located elsewhere. So you would have communities, I believe they said there's only 2 communities in Alberta currently who have actually a confirmed shadow population according to municipal census. It has to be 1,000 people or more, and then there's some other stipulations around it, so you would do that as part of a municipal census. Also, one of the cost modifiers is the crime severity index. So, you know, those municipalities that have a higher CSI would have a adjustment to subsidy in their rates. So some of the other things I learned was that they don't know the timing of this implementation or if it will be implemented. Right now they're looking at it. I would suggest to you that if they are investigating this, that there is going to be some implementation. I just don't know exactly what that model is going to look like, but there will be an impact on us for sure. One of the other questions that I found interesting, the answer to a question that was asked during the webinar was, there is no clear direction right now on where those funds will be directed. So the question was, is this going to enhance, you know, policing? Will there be more officers? Will there be more, you know, what is the money going to be used for? Is it just going to offset the provincial contract with the RCMP? Like, what is that? And they said there isn't any clear direction on that. So my guess would be that it's just going to help to balance the provincial budget. So those costs will then be transferred down to municipalities to pay whatever share of that policing cost there is.
Right.
Now, it's not all policing costs, so there's some specialty components of the RCMP that are still would be included at the provincial level. So here they're talking about, you know, basically the administration and the operational costs of your detachments. And then that would be shared, again, I need to look at the model specific to Clarisholm, but for instance, Clarisholm's detachment covers both Clarisholm as well as the India Willow Creek, so there'd be a proportionate share allocated to those municipalities, and that would be based on caseload. And so it's sort of a moving target, and that's one of the concerns I have is, you know, this year it might be, and I don't even wanna throw out a number, but it might be X dollars, and then next year all of a sudden it might be X dollars plus 100,000, or it might be,
For the base
you know,
rate,
so I'd
yeah.
like to kinda get a better grasp on what that might mean. There's only 30 days, I believe it was 30 days from the time of the release, so the webinar that we had, we have 30 days to respond. So I'm trying to get as much information as I can, to try and get an official response back to them. So I will keep you informed as I get more information.
It'd also be neat to see if they share it between communities, because I know when you do the ride-alongs or whatever, if Fort McLeod requires backup and Clarisholm goes there, Nanton then, if there's nobody here, it covers us, and then High River covers. It kind of
Sounds like an ambulance.
Well, the
So you-
previous, this is not new math, we used to pay. When we did before, if there was like a call to the other communities, that's not factored in.
that's not okay.
I
Wasn't
believe
before.
that change came in 2005, 2011, there was discussion. And I don't have those,
I would say 5 or 6.
but if I recall, a municipality of a population approximately this size, at that time would have been paying right around $350,000 to $400,000 a year for policing costs.
It's 14 years ago.
Yeah, so,
So
I
what's that per
don't,
capita?
again, I don't know what it means for us,
Same
but
population, divide 300,000 by 37.
Right?
That's your.
So that'd be around your 8%, right?
If you could make the wording any more
Right.
hard to
Hey?
decipher
Yeah.
than that, or that,
Well, this is, when they
That's-
came up with this policy a year ago, remember I was
Yeah.
quite concerned
Yep.
and I
Yeah.
called
Yep.
the other towns and we all
That
wrote
was-
letters.
Mhm.
And then that was the first thing we asked Roger about when he was here. And
yeah,
here it is.
1,000 divided
Yeah.
by
The question is,
3,600.
if something like this goes down, the request for provincial funds to offset
Right.
budgets.
Well, any funds they get from us will just go into general revenue, I'm sure, to offset their costs.
And the argument is there's one taxpayer, but again, it's just something that's being transferred down to municipalities to pay the cost
8108.
and add that to our tax, our property tax base, right? The other question was, how is this going to be, like, is it gonna be requisitioned, or how is that gonna work? And again, they don't even know that at this point, so. It would be nice if this does go forward, that it be a requisition, so that we can show it as a separate tax on our municipal taxes, because, you know, it has the potential to have a significant impact
Huge
on
impact.
our budgets.
Oh.
All of Alberta.
Huge.
Significant, and 291 municipalities.
Well, if it was $350,000, it worked out to $95
The
bucks a person.
previous way it was run was a requisition, so you had your budget number before you ever went, set your budget.
But you couldn't show it separate on your tax
No,
notice.
back then you
It
were
just
allowed.
had to show as a municipal expense, right?
Oh.
So, that's different than like the school
Oh.
taxes.
The school tax, you can show it separate. The
it's not,
police,
it's not gonna matter.
No, it's not. Well, yeah.
well, it's gonna
Whether you
matter.
label, but at least you can label it.
If you can label it, you get more people hostile and phoning the government complaining
Right.
about it.
And I don't wanna throw numbers out until I have
No,
Yeah.
those
No,
numbers
that's fair
from
enough.
the province, like, don't,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
And the model is anywhere from 15% of those costs up to 70% of those costs, so it could be from
Right.
A to B or A to Z, like you just don't know at this point, but
Well,
at
from the-
least we could know our sort of worst case scenario or best case
They,
scenario.
or take the
Maybe.
middle. But the previous one, we got the first information, and the math back then, I was predicting about $1 million cost to the town. Because you gotta take inflation into that, 300,000 back 14 years ago.
Wow.
You're looking at $800 to $1 million if they push it through the way they did before.
Right.
Well, this is a different model than it was
It's a different
before,
model, but
so,
dollars
yeah.
and cents are gonna come down.
Hmm.
Even if it ended up at 300,000, that's a huge impact. on
Still huge,
property
yeah.
Taxes.
Yeah. How
Huge
many,
impact.
how many properties do we build in?
2,000.
2,000? 1,700?
Oh, I can't remember the number. Marion, what's the number of taxable properties in town, residential and industrial?
Right around 1,600.
1,600?
Yeah, so
I
at
don't know the exact number, but
350,000, you're
16 to
looking at $200
with
per year.
residential.
So, in the same breath, if you look at somebody and say you've got police coverage for $15 a month for your whole entire family.
Which
you're
is
not
fair,
doing-
but it's still a hard pill to swallow when
Oh,
you got that,
it's-
you know, when I was included in your
You-
provincial.
Yeah.
It's still a hard pill to swallow.
It wasn't-
I agree with
We're
you.
not gonna be that.
You're
No, what, no,
Yeah.
you're
But
right,
if,
you're
if
right.
somebody would write that in stone for me,
Yeah, that
I'm
The
good.
province
But
isn't
the
gonna do
moving
that.
target stuff
it
is
scares the
not
heck out of
happening.
everyone, yeah.
But they're
Right.
also, you're paying, if it comes down to we're paying a couple, $300 a year extra on our property taxes for policing. We're not getting any
More.
additional
Extra.
benefits, we're getting
No,
nothing that
services.
we don't have right now.
And that
If
was
it
a
was
question
dropping
of the
off one side
webinar.
of the budget, it would be nice, but it's not. Yeah, exactly.
Marion?
That was one of the questions in the webinar was, well, will we see a reduction in, our employment tax at the provincial level if that's being transferred down to municipalities? And again, that was where they said, we don't know where the funds will be
So in
allocated.
other words, no.
So they need more info.
Yeah, that's a terrible.
Yeah.
Right.
I knew it was coming when they put it.
But
in.
again,
Yeah.
just for clarity's sake, this is something the provincial government's gonna tell us we're doing.
But the worst part about this is
Right.
not the provincial government. This was not started by the provincial government. This was started by AUMA, the group that is supposed to be protecting us. They came up with this solution to protect their big cities. This was not our provincial government's mandate. Our AUMA did this. This came from them. Because the cities lobbied the AUMA, they're the bigger members in the AUMA, and they got this through. So they're downloading, the bigger cities are downloading some of their costs onto
On
us.
us.
This came from that. This didn't come from the province.
Well,
It's, well,
But
you're gonna
just-
disagree with me.
Yeah,
but-
this is not going to affect any funding that is currently paid by municipalities with a population of 5,000 or more.
It's not,
No.
that's what they were
Not
pushing for
over
originally.
5,000, no. They're saying they're leaving the current funding model the same
And they're
as
just
it is.
adding more money from
This
us.
is only for the 291 municipalities who currently pay no policing costs.
But still, this was all
291
instigated by
don't
an
pay any.
AUMA.
Yes.
Oh,
It was all instigated by a study
that.
by AUMA that brought this to light.
oh.
Okay, information brief, provincial spending report. Anything, Marion?
Yeah, so on September 3rd, you probably all heard, the provincial government released the report and recommendations from the Blue Ribbon panel on Alberta's finances. You can see the full report online if you'd like, I've read it. The report includes recommendations on municipal funding that council should be aware of. And I've taken an excerpt from the executive summary and I'll just read that to you. Recommendation 15 says it should examine its legislative framework for capital funding to municipalities with the goals of aligning funding to provincial goals and priorities and fiscal capacity, while further considering funding formulas that require municipalities to share more in the costs of major projects. Adjusting its allocation formulas for grants to municipalities in line with the policy of bringing Alberta's provincial and municipal per capita capital stock in line with the comparative provinces. So that's reducing funding to capital. Establishing accountability mechanisms and performance measures to monitor the delivery of municipal programs and services and value for money spent So citizens have the ability to constructively evaluate their local government and their use of tax dollars. And making better use of federal infrastructure funding through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program as a means of more effectively managing the costs of the capital plan. The panel also recommended that in the plan that they will balance the budget by 2022-2023, and some of those recommendations include things that would affect municipalities as well, particularly capital grants, largely grants to municipalities for local capital projects, will increase moderately from 2018-19 to 2021-22, and capital grants in 21-22, 22-23 are each $500 million lower than in the current budget plan. This reduces borrowing debt and government's deficit in 2021 and 2022-23. So, in other words, our capital, in order to balance the budget, the recommendation in this report is that those capital grants be reduced by the $500 million
Each.
So again, the impact of these recommendations are currently unknown, but I expect to see the output of this come in the budget that is to be tabled in October by the
Next month.
provincial government.
It's gotta be corrected somewhere.
Yep.
It's gonna be expensive to live in Alberta pretty soon.
It's okay, they don't know we're out here.
The ICIP, was that the grant funding that last year, May, we went and looked at?
Well, that was that major capital grant funding. I've never heard of anybody taking advantage of that. Did that one?
Yeah,
That's
so what
for
happened with that
larger
grant,
centric
it was transferred to the province, and the province had priority projects that basically used all of the grant funding.
That's why we never heard of it again.
Yeah. In fact, they were oversubscribed.
Oversubscribed. Of course they were. Okay, we'll move on. Information brief. Emerson Park Committee update. Marion?
Okay, so just a quick update on that. They've been working with the landscape architect to finalize the concept plans. There is a concept plan in your package. That may change with some, minor adjustments, but that was due to the feedback that was received at the open house on June 6th. The committee reviewed all of that and then discussed those with the landscape architect, and basically they combined a number of plans. The feedback was used to create that plan. There's a circular pathway shape and components from each of the plan for the structures and other areas. The stroll gardens could be incorporated, or could incorporate some type of art or sculpture gardens as well. There's a large green space for activities, as well as an unprogrammed area in the northwest corner. That could be used for future expansion or additional groups. The bathroom upgrades have also been discussed and added into the phasing plan. So when they looked at the overall cost, correct me if I'm wrong, those on the committee, but I think it was in the range of $1.5 million or something to that effect. And so what they looked at was, phasing and how do we do this, create the vision that the community sees, and so they looked at the phasing, and it's broke out there in your information brief, basically as to how that possibly can be done over maybe a few years or whatever it takes. Also working, as you saw earlier tonight, with all the CFAP applications. Working with community groups to see if we can find some grant funding to assist us with that. So just wanted to give you an update on that, and where things are at, as a follow-up to that open house we had.
Very cool.
24 information brief. Annexation update.
All right, the annexation of the custom cannabis property is moving forward. We sent notification to the MD of Willow Creek that we intended to annex following the resolution on July 15th. The MD Council reviewed the mapping and is in agreement with the boundary as we proposed. The letter of intent along with the map is now required to be circulated to all the governing bodies and referral agencies, and that has been sent out. So further to that, we will have public consultation over the next few months, or coming months, probably a couple months. Old Man River will continue to work on the report. I did get notification just today from the Municipal Government Board that they received our notification. And they outlined what they would be looking for in the report, so that's been forwarded to ORSC. They will finalize the application and submit the report and the application, and then from there the Municipal Government Board prepares a recommendation report that would be provided to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and because this is uncontested by the landowner as well as the two municipal jurisdictions, we expect that it will proceed without too much difficulty. They would advise the minister to proceed to the Alberta Cabinet with an order in council to gain approval from the Cabinet colleagues, and then the Alberta Cabinet considers the Municipal Government Board's report, and if the annexation is approved, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta signs the order in council, and then the annexation is complete.
Okay.
So that's where we're at.
Excellent.
Okay. Number 25, information brief, strategic plan report. Marion?
It's the monthly report. We didn't provide you one in the summer months because there wasn't a lot of change. So it's just there for your review. Any questions you might have?
I liked under the expansion of pathways, I liked that letter from Starla. It was nice to have a nice
Yeah.
email sent, so I appreciated that.
There was also one from
Karen?
Karen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I knew there was two. I can only
That
remember
pathway
Starla.
is nice going out to the stormwater ponds now, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's nice
That's
to
a
do.
great path. I use that
Yeah.
one quite a bit.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of that accomplished in the last couple of years.
Mhm.
It's great.
And the one by the old Millennium Ball Diamonds there, they go there. I knew there was kids up there. I just didn't realize there's that many kids up there.
20 some,
There is,
26.
Yeah. I didn't think there was that many of them.
Yeah.
I knew there was some, but
It's like a
Yeah,
parade
that's
every
why
day.
they came after it. It was
No,
26.
yeah, hey, it's well used.
Yeah.
Okay, information brief, council resolutions. Any questions in there? Number 27, adoption of the information items above.
I'll make that motion to adopt them as presented.
Question?
Moved by Councillor Zimmer to adopt the information items as presented.
All in favor? Okay, a motion to go in camera. Councillor Carlson, all in favor? Return the camera off, please. Okay, 5 minutes. We're ready. Motion to come out of in camera. Councillor Schlossberger, all in favor of coming out of in camera? Carried. Okay, we have one motion to make.
I'll make that
Councillor
motion.
Cutler. Concerning the sale of the 3 plaques down across the street from Amundsen Park. Question?
Moved by Councillor Cutler to accept the offer from Joseph Starr in the amount of $18,000 plus GST for the property located at 232, 234, and 236 50th Avenue West with conditions.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn? Councillor Carlson, of course. We are adjourned. Camera off, please.